people look at unicorns and then try and normalize that and think that, well, we need to be doing what Gymshark does, or we need to be doing what Social Chain does, or what Steve Bartlett does, when the reality is you can make a lot of money without having to force this fake, authentic, personal brand.
I'm just going to go and ask the guys in there if they know who Mike is. Hi guys, just one quick question. Do you know who this is? Chris Moyles.
Once you've got a personal brand, you can put out any old wank and people just like it.
The only fucking metric that ever matters when it comes to branding, content, anything, is whether or not your target audience like it. If it doesn't matter how good you fucking think it is. It's shit.
On this episode of the Views My Own podcast, we're joined in the studio by Shoaib Ahmed from Yello Hippo and Matt Swain from the Social Club. We'll be sharing our views on building a personal brand, whether everybody needs one, if all employees should spend time building their own, and also what about the dark side of building a personal brand. If this is the first time at the Views My Own podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Let us know what you thought.
Your personal brand is just who you are. There should be no difference between your online persona and your offline persona. And if they're cohesive, then you've got a great personal brand because you're representing you in the most authentic way. Obviously, when you build a personal brand, you're going to get opportunities, whether that's PR, you might be a student who wants a job. You'll get job opportunities, promotions, you'll attract talent in your team, business leads. There's loads of benefits to it, but I think what we're seeing now especially is a lack of authenticity online. As personal branding as an industry gets bigger, people are like, oh, there's an opportunity here. How can we capitalize on it? And it's moving away in a slightly different direction, which I'm sure we'll get into. But for me, the personal brand is just, look, this is me and this is how I'm showing up. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, for me, like everybody's got a personal brand without realizing it. We're all known for certain things. We all dress in certain ways. We all speak in a certain tone. And so really like the kind of personal brand that we're talking about is just being a little bit more intentional and creating content around that like version of ourselves that we're known for, and then using social media, using content to essentially reach more people, to gain more opportunities, etc. But I think most people like don't realize that they have a personal brand without, knowing that.
I think we've all got a version that we wish or would like people to think that we are.
Yeah.
And then there's probably a version of you that people actually think you are. And your personal brand probably falls in between, somewhere between those 2 points. Probably closer to what everyone else thinks about you.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that's all it is. It's what people perceive you as, isn't it, online? I think it's important sometimes to be authentic. And I do think that's important. I think I'm relatively authentic. I don't show everybody everything because people wouldn't buy off me. But I think people concentrate too much on authenticity in marketing. And I agree with this for a personal brand as well. Because you don't need to show your full self all the time. You can show part of yourself, because if that part of yourself is relatable to your target audience and makes them buy more off you, then you should double down and concentrate on doing that more. And I think people in marketing concentrate too much on this authentic route and trying to be authentic. I need to be authentic. I need to speak how I speak. I need to do that. Rather than going, how do I be relatable? Because that's what great copywriters do, right? Great copywriters can be relatable to multiple target audiences, despite having never stepped in their shoes. That's a good marker. Relatability over authenticity for me.
Yeah, I think like for me, like if you're trying, attempting, strategizing, being authentic, then you're actually not being authentic. And so you essentially end up overthinking it. So taking a step back and just going, I'm just going to share like my thoughts, what I think, my views on this, as opposed to being like, how do I show up authentically online? I think that's actually the wrong question to be asking most of the time.
Yeah, definitely. And also you've got all these companies cropping up as well, where you've got teams of people sitting behind CEOs who are basically acting as that CEO online. So I mean, we go to the point of creating content for people, right? Am I keeping my head still, by the way? Yeah, good. So we go to the trouble of creating content for people, but we don't manage their accounts. I fucking hate people who manage social media accounts, particularly for individuals, because I don't think that's authentic. Whereas there's huge,
it's the furthest thing from authenticity, isn't it?
There's huge business. These businesses that sit behind some of these really well-known CEOs, and I know for a fact, knowing some of those people that work on those teams, that those CEOs aren't even responding to direct messages and comments because they haven't got time. But everyone in their head, I mean, that is
yeah, exactly,
unauthentic as you can be.
If you've got an authentic personal brand, you shouldn't be able to outsource your personal brand, right?
Yeah, what do you think about that, guys?
I'm going to disagree slightly. I totally agree with what you said about being authentic and showing up as your true self.
Yeah.
But I think there are ways you can do that with outsourcing parts of your brand. So for me, what I'm trying to build is a personal branding agency that takes a completely different model to what we currently see. So instead of like sitting and ghostwriting content for my clients, what we do is we sit on Zoom calls and I'll record the entire session. I'll fire off questions at them to encourage them to think like a creator or to think in a slightly different way when a CEO is so consumed by their day-to-day, they're in a meeting about this and then this and then this. They're never really thinking, oh, this is actually an amazing story here that we can tell about the business. So it's my job to help kind of unveil the curtains into the business and help find, the really good bits that we can share with the audience. I think that there are ways you can do that authentically. For example, with my clients, I ask them questions on WhatsApp and they voice note back. Even things like a voice note, I can get so much from, like emphasis on certain words, certain like the dialect, vocabulary, emotion as well, which I think is super important when you're creating content. And they don't have the time to sit and share that with their audience.
Yeah.
But I can take what they've given me, raw images. When they're in a meeting, I'll tell them, grab a quick picture or, send me a voice note when you're on the train and tell me about your day. That stuff I think is completely relatable and relevant to them, but it's been shared and distributed in a way that they wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, there's one thing about this though, I think, and I know, and I guess a lot of marketers or personal brand experts that listen to this will say, well, we wouldn't do that. But I know for a fact they would do this. Be authentic with yourself and admit it. If you knew that a particular post banged, you would bank that post for 2 months' time to use with whoever is another one of your clients, right? Because that works. You would naturally go back to, well, I know, but this style of post works. So posts, even though for different personal brands, will start looking and feeling the same, in my opinion. I think I can tell.
Yeah, you see it all over. There's a lot of regurgitated content, and I think. See, I agree with what you're saying to a certain extent because we do it as well. We've built personal brands and we do content for people. I do think it takes some of that authenticity out of it though, because a lot of our clients who we do personal branding for don't go around telling people that we do their personal brand. Mm-hmm. They go around even in comments making out that they've done it, right? So it looks authentic. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way they play the game. But I think it takes the shine off it a little bit. It's like when you find out, say you read like a fucking biography of like your favourite celebrity and then you find out it was ghostwritten by someone else. Mm-hmm. It takes the shine off it a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. You write all your posts?
Yeah.
And I write all my posts. I've never outsourced any of my writing on LinkedIn at all. And I would say that we've got probably two of the stronger, authentic personal brands that have been built up over a long time on that platform, I would say. Would you agree?
Depends what type of personal brand you want to build, I guess. Like, what would you think of Mike and Dan's personal brand from outsiders?
Well, I would guess that you probably wouldn't have known us before. I would argue that it's a different target market for that.
Well, we've tried.
Yeah.
Not chatted to me, Dan. I've realised that.
That's kind of interesting in itself. Like,
maybe you get invited to this social event that went on. Sorry, Mike. all the big influencers and all the big movies and shakes in the market. I was like, I didn't know what was going on.
Matt said it was age.
It's secret,
Yeah.
It's meant to be secret.
Because that's quite interesting then. So I would say, in my mind, I've got a strong personal brand with a certain type of person.
Sometimes we're in a bit of a LinkedIn bubble with
I think
personal
so.
brands.
I would agree because
in what way?
I went over to Leeds to see some friends this weekend, and obviously I'm in this world now, and I wasn't before. I'm talking about all like LinkedIn influencers and things, and what we're gonna do, and they're like, "Who the fuck are you on about?" Like, do you know what I mean? And I'm like, but you know what I mean? Like, you get like in this world of people, but really,
you've done me dirty this week, haven't you as well?
Well, on that, so before the shoot, we actually sent our roaming reporter Ben off into Warrington Town to see, are we living in a LinkedIn bubble?
Yes.
Do the people of Warrington actually know Mike and Dan?
So we're out and about in Warrington, and we're just seeing if the locals know the personal brands of a few different people. So let's go and find out. You right, pal?
You look like a shady man.
Not too shady.
Can't pick what you're doing.
I'll answer your question if you answer my question.
Right, let me answer your question first.
Go on. Just going to go and ask the guys in there if they know who Mike is. Hi guys, just one quick question. Do you know who this is? Chris Moyles.
Wow. 25 perfect. Let me tell you why we're here really quick.
Go on. Well, no, you asked me one. Now I'm asking you one.
All right. Okay.
Do one for one. Do you know who this is?
No.
No. Go on. What's your question then? Can I ask you a quick question, please?
Of course you can.
Do you know who this is?
Am I supposed to?
I'll say that.
You fucking fucked me over here.
Case of child abuse and online grooming.
Right.
To put it bluntly, it's just the worst it's ever been.
Yeah.
So we're starting a brand new campaign next month called Speak Out to Keep Safe, where we're going to primary schools all over the UK.
Yeah. this is? Do you know who this is? No, it's not me. No, never mind, don't worry. No.
So the only problem they're having at the minute, they're getting a call every 25 seconds, which is around 3,500 calls every single day, and they just don't have enough counsellors trained to get to every call.
Right. Do you know who this is?
Oh, this is hard, this. Is he a model?
Do you know who this is?
Oh my god, I follow him, but I forgot his name. He's a motivational speaker and he's on Gravity Day.
Steve Bartlett. That's it. I'll give you that one, yeah. And do you know who this is?
Love Island.
Love Island.
That's so
So that was it.
Did you take that?
And
No
that's
one
it.
knew any of his work.
Nobody knew.
Even Steve Bartlett was struggling in Warrington, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The people
Love
of
Island,
Warrington.
Hey, that's not bad. I'll say that.
Love Island, you taking that?
Well, like Rough Island, isn't it?
There you go. We need to up our personal brand, so maybe we are in a bubble.
We are, mate.
Only people that work in marketing in the Manchester area might know who we are.
Yeah. Try Berry, mate. Honestly, everyone, tell you.
I think back to what you were saying about the strength of your personal brands. I think if you covered the profile picture and the name, you'd still be able to know it's a Mike Winnett post or a Dan Kelsall post. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of personal brands now, they all, like you were saying before, they all blend into each other.
Yeah.
But like a real strong one is, I know that Dan's wrote it without even seeing the profile picture. You know, the specific words you use.
That's the thing. Well, that's the thing with so in content we've talked about it before, where you use hooks. You use a hook to draw people in, right? And it's the best way of drawing people in. If you don't have a brand yet, nobody knows who you are. You've got to draw people into your content with the first line or the title or the thumbnail, whatever it might be. It's got to be a bit impactful enough to draw people in, right? Eventually, over time, as you build your brand up and your personal brand, you stop needing hooks as much because your name becomes the hook. Or your profile picture becomes the hook, or your channel becomes the hook, because people see it, they recognise it, they know it, and they go to it. You don't actually need to draw people in with kind of clickbaity stuff anymore.
Well, I would say once you've got a personal brand, you can put out any old wank and people just like it. And some of the stuff I see that gets so much engagement, I think like, oh, come on now.
Well, didn't you say Gary Vee?
Be nice to people.
Didn't Gary Vee put a
10,000
flame emoji or something? You said, and he got like 25,000 retweets or something.
Yeah.
For what?
But my favourite ones, I used to take the piss like Gary Vee's post all the time. So he'd post like a 4-minute video on or whatever, and it'd be posted like 90 seconds before. But it'd have like 230 retweets. It's like, why are you retweeting something you don't actually know? For at the end, for all we know, he could have drop kicked the baby and ripped open his shirt with a swastika on. And you've got like, retweet that. I want the first one to retweet that. And that's what I mean. It's just like, idiots. You know what I mean?
You want to follow being different, however you do that. And so I think a great example is Gymshark and some of the campaigns that they run. If you think about it, Gymshark's not known for like any one person, and yet their brand is super strong. So they ran that like market stall event in London where they just like, randomly set up a market stall and sold discounted products. It brought like a huge crowd in, all through social traction. I was at their barbershop in Shoreditch, where it's like a mental health talking barbershop.
What?
Again, a really...
Gymshark's got a barbershop?
Yeah, just for a week. And it just hit socials everywhere. And, it's a really cool in-person stuff. There's no face behind that. It's Gymshark's deloaded barbershop. And so I think by thinking differently about content and socials and how businesses approach the campaigns that they're doing, they can essentially have that same impact without having that front person.
But do you think though, Gymshark can do that because of the strength of how well they've done over the last few years? Like if you are Bob's Computer Emporium or whatever, you ain't opening up a market store in Shoreditch and getting any of that. I think there's a problem nowadays where people look at unicorns and then try and normalize that and think that, well, we need to be doing what Gymshark does, or we need to be doing what Social Chain does, or what Steve Bartlett does, when the reality is you can make a lot of money with your ideal client without having to force this fake, authentic personal brand. There's plenty of businesses that make millions and millions of pounds, and they are far more successful monetary-wise and business-wise than somebody that gets 10,000 likes on LinkedIn for saying, 100%. Be nice to all people. 100%.
And so, some people, the reality is as well, like, some people are fucking boring. Like this is the thing about, like, you get people who go around saying everybody can have a personal brand, or everyone should be having a personal brand. I disagree with that. Having tried to build the personal brand of some very fucking dull people, it's tough, and it's hard to be authentic. You can build personal brands for people who are a bit dull and boring, but you lose that authenticity, right? And they do have the function as well. We've We have done that, and the results that they've got from it have been very similar to authentic personal brands. The only problem is if anybody ever meets them, they think you're fuck all like you are online.
Well, that was going to be my next point I was going to raise for you. So surely you can polish a turd and make them look mint online, right?
Yeah.
But then the reality when they actually deal with that person in real life, and I think the reality and the perception they've created is so vast with some people. Building such a good personal brand can actually probably be damaging or a letdown for a lot of people, I would say.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it can. It can. I mean, you have to,
My nan would have called it fur coat, no knickers. That's what she'd have said.
Well, it is, yeah. But and if it's all about selling a particular product as well, and you're going to turn up, and you're nothing like that person, and they bought off you because of a post you put out, and they found it funny, and you've come in, you've set up this meeting, and then you're getting your fucking dull as dishwater. Probably not making that sale. Yeah. So it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one, but I don't think you can build everyone's personal brand up. And I think in the long run, especially for selling a business, it's more important to build the brand of the business than it is the individual. You can't sell an individual, you can sell a brand though.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're the owner and it's you that wants to sell, they want you to stick around, won't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's also very contextual. So for me, a lot of the clients I work with actually fit a certain demographic. So it's kind of young founders who early startups looking for investment, and their kind of client base is on LinkedIn. Yeah. Whereas another business, if their audience is on TikTok, they target direct to consumer, they might not want to invest so much in personal branding. An older agency who have built their entire funnel through kind of referral marketing or network marketing or in-person events, it's not as relevant. So I'd say probably 50% of people who come to me, we say no to, because if I was to say yes and start building a personal brand, it wouldn't be their brand. It'd just be a brand that I've created for them. And that's where I think a lot of the problems come about, where you don't kind of understand who a person really is. And when they meet someone in person, it's like, oh, you're nothing like I thought you were. So I think also you've got to kind of be sensible with, if you want to build a personal brand and get your team noticed, is it actually, like, what's the end goal? What's the purpose you're serving? Are you just there for a bit of clout and build following? Or is this going to serve like an actual purpose in terms of like develop the business or attract talent into the team? Or, so you've got to have business objective behind what you're doing and not just do it because everybody else is.
Well, I would say that the biggest personal brands on LinkedIn today, and I'm saying LinkedIn because that's where I probably spend most of my time in terms of any social media, the biggest personal brands on LinkedIn are the people trying to sell personal branding services. And I think that's a very different process to building up a personal brand of somebody that's going to sell stuff.
I completely agree. I like you've said that as well, because obviously someone working in that space as well, it's refreshing to hear that it's all about results, because it pisses me off the amount of marketers out there, who sit there and it's just about building a fluffy cloud and a fucking following for no reason, and an echo chamber where everyone fucking tickles each other's balls and pats each other on the back.
That's what I would say. There's been a rise of them people, I would say, in the last sort of 6 months.
There is a lot. That's what I'm saying. It's refreshing to hear that. So this is one thing I've got a few times with personal branding, is we built the personal brand of a guy once in recruitment, and he had loads to say, loads of interesting points, very opinionated, right? And we built this up, and he was, and this was a guy who was to build a recruiter up is difficult because fucking everybody hates recruiters, right? Built this guy's personal brand up. This guy's going, and I know it's not all about going viral, but he's going viral, once a week. Most of his posts are hitting big numbers. He's getting a shit ton of leads through, a lot of jobs on, and business is going well. But just 1 week, he just stopped it dead. Cancelled it, disappeared offline. And to be fair, I haven't seen him since or talked to him much, and just said, well, I'm cancelling the service. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it mentally. I can't deal with the shit I'm getting online, and I can't deal with the amount of people basically giving him grief. And that's the other thing that I think people don't realise is, if you're going to do this and you're going to build a personal brand, it's not going to be all hunky-dory. You're going to get dickheads online, because guess what? Everyone's behind the keyboard, right? And I don't know whether that's ever happened to you guys when you've been doing people's personal brands, but that was the first time I've ever done it. And this guy could not cope, because I knew it wasn't even that bad what he was getting. Nowhere near what we get online, mate. But it's
exactly. But I would say we're better equipped to deal with that because we've done this slowly over a number of years. So it hasn't been if you go from 0 to 100, it was, you've literally had your first social media job, then 3 months later you're being wheeled out as the face of whatever it is that you want to be the face of.
Yeah.
I think you're not really battle hardened or ready to deal with the influx. And I would say there's been some posts recently, the last couple of weeks or so, where people have done a post. They've not got the engagement they'd usually get from their little engagement pod, or they get all the nice, great content, babe, great content, hon, whatever. Once it goes outside of there, they can't cope with what happens next.
Yeah.
And then it's like they go into victim mentality. Then it's like, I'm being a victim here. Where it's like, but that's real life. Not everyone's going to agree with everything you say. And the bigger you build that personal brand, the further it is from your really true, authentic self. I think that's when it gets even more harder to deal with, and that's where anxiety and depression all that creeps in, because you're so worried now that someone's going to taint this image of yourself that's been very carefully stage managed, and you've deliberately followed a process, and you know that you need to show some vulnerability on a Thursday at 11 o'clock because that's when it gets the most engagement and whatever. Do it listicle now because that's popular. It's like so convoluted and formulaic that I think that's why they struggle with it, and I think they're not ready for it. I think.
Yeah, probably, but you don't think it's a certain type of person as well? Because I've never given a shit. But is it? Do you think? Do you think it's just a certain type of person who can handle that? Because I think we can handle it, and we can handle a joke sometimes. But it's never really bothered me. Even from the start, whenever I get shit, I just enjoy winding them up more.
Well, even your missus said I put weight on, Dan, after the last video, and you don't see me like whinging about that online. You want me to bring that up in a video a week later. So, but do you know what I mean? But I know some people, their heads will fall off if that happened to them. Do you know what I mean? Like they'd be like, that's it. No, I'm not doing this. I'm being trolled and being bullied.
Yeah.
Someone's just at the piss, mate.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a big thing. Or it's great content for the post about the post, which is.
Do you guys prepare your clients for stuff like that?
Yeah. So I had a client who did exactly what you just mentioned with your client. He had a really big viral post, over 100,000 reactions, like 10 million views. And at first it was like really positive, and then suddenly in one day, I think he must have hit a certain audience, which was really, really negative. It was like really brutal, but not just kind of attacking the sentiment of the post, but then going on his old content and commenting stuff, going on his website and sending queries to his team and stuff. And for him, who never done personal branding before, it was like massively overwhelming. And I think for me as well, as someone who was offering the service, that was a realization moment. Like, actually, I need to consider this more in my service, because I don't think at the moment there's enough of that. Like training, how do you prepare people for what you're exposing them to? So he took a little break from LinkedIn for that reason. And I think, it's not for everybody. And there was another client who nearly came on with me, and I was like, actually, I don't think this is going to work for you because you're massively introverted. You don't want to share any aspect of yourself online. Therefore, you should probably be building a company brand on a company brand page and not a personal brand. So I do think it's made for particular people. And then on the opposite, as you were saying, Mike, with what tends to happen that I've noticed is like a lot of young creators kind of play the victimhood game, where, a post didn't do well. I got a few negative comments. I'm a victim now. You're not a victim. Someone's disagreed with you, and that's like the real world. You've got to accept that. If you're willing to put content out there, knowing it's provocative, then you've got to accept that other people might engage in a way that they might disagree with you. And then creating content around your content just creates this like cycle effect where you're actually talking about nothing of value to anybody. You're just kind of spiraling in your own like
you're creating an echo chamber, aren't you? And I think that's probably the most dangerous thing there. Yeah. And I think in their own minds, I mean, we all are, right? So we're all the hero in our own story, but you're either the hero or the victim. You can never go, oh, do you know what? Like, fair enough, I did come across a bit of a prick there.
But that's all it is. I honestly think that's what it's all about, is just owning it. I mean, I've done some pretty stupid shit in my time, but I've just, I decided early on that if it ever comes out, when I'm a big CEO and offended, worth billions, ever comes out, I'll just own it. Yeah, that was my penis.
Yeah, self-awareness at the end of the day. If you're putting yourself out there, you've got to be self-aware.
A lot of these huge personal brands, like you say, some of the people who sell it online, they have these huge personal brands, and they've got a huge percentage of their target audience in another country who aren't interested in the services they're selling and are just liking it because of the sake of it. And it is vanity metrics. And as a business owner who's selling something very specific to a niche audience, you don't necessarily want that.
Well, I've seen a lot of these influencers and people with big personal brands using engagement pods, even now in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, that's just fucking stupid. Like that is an echo chamber.
It's such a weird thing to actually want to do, because what you're doing is, for a number of reasons. Number one, you're not even finding out what your actual target audience wants and how your content actually lands with your real target audience that want to buy from you. Because your first 200, 300 comments and likes are from people that have forced to like your stuff. Yeah. So how can you ever improve your content if you're not getting real world feedback? If you do a post and it flops, you go, shit.
It was
I ain't
shit.
gonna do a post like this. But if you go, you've done a post and it's actually wank, but it's got still 500, 600 likes in there from all the other gimps that are in your lem pod. Then you're not going to know that that content's wank. You think, oh, it's still got 1,000. See what I mean? There's a
Well, we say the same thing with paid content as well. So I always say to people, put it out to your audience, right? If it doesn't do well, because a lot of people go, oh, I've designed this infographic and it's flopped. Why has it flopped? It was fucking mint. I don't get it. I thought it was fucking mint. So what they then do is then put paid behind it to try and send it to more people who also think it's shit, right? That's what happens, right? And what we say is test it. You test messaging organically. If you get a high percent of your target audience liking it, then there's a good chance that if you did that as an ad campaign and put it out to more of your target audience, put some spend behind it, it'll probably do well. It's a good test. The only fucking metric that ever matters when it comes to branding, content, anything, is whether or not your target audience like it.
Yeah.
Whether they react to it, whether it causes them to do something, whether it brings you in the results you're after. If it doesn't matter how good you fucking think it is, it's shit.
Do you get people that just say to you, I just want to go viral? I can imagine that's quite a common thing, eh?
I think a lot of people do talk about going viral. I think even a lot of the time, even if they say, oh, it's not about the numbers or whatever, there is this like back of the mind, like, I do want to go viral, basically. It's really hard to escape that trap. And, in a way, though, a lot of social media is a numbers game. Like, you have a small conversion rate. And so if you touch 1 million people compared to 100 people, the chances, just looking at the numbers, is that the 1 million will convert better. And so, you have, in a way, got to, appreciate that, even if it's super targeted, super valuable, sometimes you need the numbers there in order to get that conversion.
Oh, you need some numbers, because this is the other argument as well. Is that if there's a lot of these people who are incapable of getting big numbers, who go, it's not about the numbers, they're just vanity metrics. No, you just can't fucking get them. You know what I mean? That's all it is. But the differentiator is getting more engagement from the right people. So if obviously I'd rather have 1,000 likes off my target audience than 10, because I'm going to get better results off that. I mean, that, but people miss that. They miss that, and they go viral for the sake of going viral, and they still only have those 10 likes off the target audience, and they have fucking 990 off a lot of other randomers.
But do you think that's so? What's the age demographic of the people that would normally be your client? Then are they younger than 30 or older than 30?
Typically, kind of late 20s. I do have a couple of clients who are like 40s, 50s. Just a couple. It's quite a range, and I think what really helped me be able to write differently for all these clients is I worked for an agency before, so I hadn't just built my brand and then decided I'm going to do it for loads of other people. I had experience working with different clients in different industries, and I think that kind of really helps when you go and you'll be approached by so many different people. Whereas if I was to just purely create my own brand and then try and write for a global supply chain leader who's 46 years old, American, like I wouldn't have a clue what to say. You begin to understand kind of tone of voice. I think that's something that's really important as well on LinkedIn, that people forget that everyone's talking about the content pillars and what you should post about, and you should write like this and leave spaces in your content, but actually your tone of voice is probably one of the most important things.
We've struggled with writers. We've struggled finding writers because they can't mimic tone of voice. If you can't mimic tone of voice, you fucked it. Right? Because you're never going to sound the same. You're never going to sound authentic. You're never going to be able to write for multiple brands.
Would you have a personal branding? So I look at you now and I would say I Am Productions. Originally, most people probably knew me to you. But I'd say you've come out of your shell and more people are starting to know you recently.
Yeah, I think it's a horrible pressure that's put on business owners who are introverted like myself. It's really interesting what you said there about actually if you're introverted, don't force it. Build your business brand instead. Yeah, that's something really important, I think, because you just feel this constant pressure that you've got to keep up. Like you see all the different CEOs and founders posting, sharing stuff about them. That's my worst nightmare.
Yeah. I'm the same as well.
I feel the pressure. I like your posts, though. I like your posts.
Yeah, but I feel forced in having to do it a little bit as well. Yeah, because I feel like I better start saying stuff. Because
here he is. Here's Ian again.
It's Thursday, 2 o'clock.
Ian's being
I joke in the office, I was kind of known as the coat holder. So me and Mike have been on a fairly similar business journey. We've sold the business together. We built the YouTube channel. But when we'd go to the events, because Mike's the face and the front man of the business, when people ask for photos, I'd just be loaded with loads of coats and be stood at the back and be like, I sold my business too. And it's like, but I like that I wasn't known. And as Mike stepped more away from Iron Productions, I have had to do a bit more of that, but I don't like it.
Yeah, do you feel exposed? And you've not even done anything naughty.
Self-police. Yeah, I know I'm squeaky clean, but I feel like you've got to self-police too much. Like, I couldn't really share. I'd love to be authentic, but like you said before, like, if I'm into cryptocurrencies and talking about NFTs and monkey pictures, like, and I'm suddenly posting that on LinkedIn, the people who buy the animated explainers go, what's he doing?
Ian's lost the plot.
Stick to Twitter.
I've had a few of that. You know, on Twitter, when I post about boxing or Everton, just randomly, people are like, what the fuck's up with Mike? Like, where's that come from?
I almost feel like you need different social platforms. One where you can just be yourself, like
when you're your professional self and your personal self. Yeah.
Somewhere where you can be yourself, like, but you can't be
all,
yourself.
All I get is when I meet people offline, though, is you're nicer than I thought you'd be.
Yeah, but you do sound arsey, though, I think.
A bellend, yeah. I sound arsey online. I sound arsey in person.
I think, like, if I watch this podcast,
sound arsey now.
I think, like,
I'm not arsey.
I think you do sound
fucking arsey, Mike.
The worst one I got was not worst one, maybe best one, depends where you're from. Was when one of the mums said to me on the school playground, you were a bit like that Dan Kelsall. If you tried a bit harder, you could be just like him. I was like, I'm Dan Kelsall if you ordered him off Wish. Was like, and that was one of the mums in school.
That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Have you got a number?
His tattoos are better than yours.
It's a joke. It's a joke, Charlotte. It's a joke.
I don't like her anyway.
So what would your advice be to
I don't like Charlotte either. I don't like Charlotte either.
What would your advice be to an introverted business owner, somebody who wants to work for themselves and maybe grow the business? Do they have to be posting and sharing stuff about themselves?
I think it definitely helps. Like, I just took on a client who's been on LinkedIn for 11 years and never posted. 3 weeks we've been working together, and we started off slow, because that would be my first piece of advice for anyone who's introverted. You don't have to, post 5 times a week, Monday to Friday, between 8 and 9 every day. You need to actually, if you have something to say, then you say it. And if you don't have something to say, don't force it.
That's a good point.
Because otherwise you're then trying to please an algorithm. You're diluting your actual messaging just to kind of rack up a few likes. But, she's definitely noticed the difference. And as soon as she started posting, her first post was just about, I've been on LinkedIn 11 years and I've never posted, so I'm giving it a shot. Because that's exactly the conversation we first had when she approached me. And that got like 600 likes very quickly. And then her second post went viral. And she messaged me and she was like, I should have started this ages ago. And she realized that she quite enjoys it now. And she's got leads from it.
Yeah.
So there's definitely benefits to it, but I would say start slow and start with intention. Don't just do it for the sake of it.
That was a great point you made about, because we've always said to our clients, whether it's fucking personal branding, whatever it's going to be, it's quality over quantity. Have something to say, have something of substance, and it has to give a bit of value to your audience. If you're just posting, because I think there's a pressure for people to post too often and too consistently. It's like I saw a post the other day about someone saying, you won't get success unless you're posting twice a day on LinkedIn. It's like, I'm sorry, right? I know some pretty fucking creative people, and
thanks, mate.
I knew you were going to say that. I know some pretty creative people, and nobody's that creative. Nobody's that creative that they can do 2 posts of really valuable posts each day. Nobody, unless that's all you're doing. Unless you got fuck all else to do and you don't have a business to run and all the rest of it, right? But no one can add that much value in a week. We've had miles more success with our clients with them posting, once, twice a week.
You post once a week, don't you? You're a good example.
Once a week, if I've got something to say. If I don't, I might not post for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but my figures never go down. They're always consistent.
That's
and
what I get
just as many leads.
With your content, I think when you do post it, because you post so infrequently, it's like back in the old days with music. If an artist dropped an album every 2 years and he didn't have any lead songs for 2 years, everyone rushed out to buy it. And I think yours is a little bit like that. When you do a post,
I've been called the Dr. Dre of LinkedIn, mate. I called myself it, but
Matt, it feels like you've got a kind of slightly different journey. You come across, certainly from the outside, quite extroverted. You like putting yourself out there on social media. Is that intentional? Has that been a bit of a plan for you?
I think my strategy is always to do something different. And you're talking about quality and quantity. I actually think that there's this third way of being different, doing something unusual, memorable, interesting. also trying to utilize the real world as well. So like the way that I try and view socials is how can I create content and start things on socials, but that will lead to interest in real life stuff, because ultimately that's where all the good stuff's at. Whether it's meeting friends, whether it's like hosting the social club party, whether it's my Gymshark visit, all of those are like some of the best things that have happened to me over the year. They started on socials and they ended up in the real world. And so I really do think that like being different and standing out, doing something that is more creative, but potentially less frequently, is definitely the way to go, to the way to actually build a personal brand that is going to stand out, above the rest, and is also going to be long lasting as well.
But this is the thing, and this is the bit I struggle with though. So, but your job is personal brand, right? So you doing that is very different to then say I'm a business owner. Like realistically, if Bob the bathroom fitter from Warrington, he's probably not going to gatecrash Gymshark's business. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing in it for him. He doesn't really need to go get 17,000 likes from Solihull. Is my point. Do you know what I mean? So, do you think it's that advice there is it works for you because your whole thing is how can I grow my own personal brand as big as I can, as quickly as I can, as I am proof that my methods work. However, building it for an actual business owner's slightly different, in my opinion.
Well, I think like my intention is, to live a good life, to do interesting things. And so like, part of my reason for being online and creating content is to create opportunities for interesting stuff in the real world. And so like the intention of my personal brand is in a way, not just to sell my services, it's also to do interesting stuff. And so, doing that stuff with Gymshark and everything else was very intentional to my ultimate goal of creating content. And so, yeah, that would just be slightly different for Colin the carpenter.
Just talk us through what how did you get the attention of Gymshark, and how did you get invited in?
Yeah, I mean, literally through my posts and through content, I'd had a bit of banter with Alfred. He was resharing some of he's like the head of social at Gymshark. He was sharing some of my stuff around. And so I was like, okay, he knows my name, how can I capture his attention basically? Yeah. And so what started as how could I capture Alfred's attention took me to like, how could I capture Gymshark's attention? And we both work in socials. It made complete sense to use socials, LinkedIn's a kind of key platform for me. And so it started from there basically. And I was like, that the idea basically evolved into the stunt it is. And now Gymshark, absolutely love the stunt. It was seen by 1.5 million people.
So for those that have not seen that post, what you did, so what did you actually do? What was the first thing that got you the attention? What was the stunt, if you can like break it down?
Yeah, so I basically had a huge cuddly shark toy that I named Jim. And I went to a gym did some like bench presses, did some, kind of shots with Jim in the gym basically. And I was like, Jim the shark at Gymshark. And I was like, I've heard great things. If this post gets 5,000 likes, would you be okay if I came and hanged out for the day? To which Noel Mack, who's their head of brand, and Alfred quickly commented and said, yes. And the post just went absolutely crazy. It went to 5,000 likes in about 3 hours, which is like absolutely lightning speed. It ended up on about 12,000 likes and over 1 million views. And as I say, it caught the whole of Gymshark's attention basically. And as I said, I was at their Shoreditch barbershop. I walk in there and they're like, they know me. They're like, where's Jim? And they've seen my content basically. And so it has left this, and I go on calls even today and they're like, oh, I saw the Gymshark thing. And it's like even you remember it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's this really memorable piece of content that was a lot of fun. And again, I think content can be dry and boring. And, there are different ways you can, spice it up by being controversial, that kind of thing. But I also think you can, do this really fun, entertaining stuff, give something that people haven't seen before, twist the way that things are done. And use LinkedIn and use social platforms for, connecting in the real world as well.
So have you won any business off the back of that? Is there any business that said, like, I've seen what you did there, how you got into Gymshark, we'd like you to be able to do that for us and our business?
Yeah, for sure. Like I was on calls, the 2 weeks following, basically constantly, with people that had got in touch as a result of that post. And I think part of it was the initiative, part of it was the reach that it got, the number of people that it landed on. And so, yeah, it was like, hugely impactful in terms of the business as well.
We did a marketing stunt with Gymshark where it was called permissionless marketing, where we took one of their existing adverts, turned it into an animated explainer video and put it out there. And we got quite a good reach. We won some business off the back of it. But the only comment we got from Noel Mack was threatening us with legal action. I think we got about it the wrong way.
He was joking. He was
joking, but he said like,
he loves the entrepreneur
legal
stuff.
On this. Eh?
He loves the entrepreneur stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah,
does he?
So originally they got in touch, Ben and Noel, saying that they'd love the old entrepreneur stuff. when we used to be thinner and funnier.
Right. All right. Nice.
Before
Nice.
COVID, the pandemic,
Nice.
and basically all life has been sucked out.
I always do free content for brands, and no one ever invites me in. Let's get one thing straight, right? A company never ever owns your social media profile, a personal one, right? And that's what all LinkedIn is. It's social media. But at the same time, you've also got to be careful. I think for a company to police stuff, I think it's just a simple case of these are our values as a company. If you say something outside of that that's, you know, racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever the fuck it is, then you get fucking sacked. Simple as that. Like that's as simple as I think it has to be. But you can never own it. You shouldn't be dictating what people post online. They can post whatever the fuck they want. If it goes against your company and you have to get rid of them, then fair enough.
But what happens in that? So take that, because I'm thinking we're specifically talking about a LinkedIn profile, right? You're on LinkedIn. Yeah. But what about Dan Kelsel's Twitter account? So it's not actually, but I follow you now on multiple platforms. Like I think there's a blurring, like Ian mentioned it before about, I just want to find a platform where I can be myself, and it's almost like unrelated to work. But I think now everything's so intrinsically linked and everything. So really, like what you're saying, Marcus Rashford missed the penalty. You say something online, that guy said that thing online, didn't he? And then he was like dragged. His employees were tagged in and stuff like that, which I think was right, by the way. Yeah. But my point is, it's mad. He's saying something here at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night because he's had a few beers and he's pissed off. Yet it's being posted and shared on LinkedIn. So in a strange way, I think self-policing is important, and dickheads will always be dickheads, won't they? But I can see why so many companies are worried, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's always been around. It's sort of like bringing the company into disrepute was always a thing. If you got in the papers for doing something stupid, you'd often get sacked, wouldn't you? And social media is just
it's just made that easier. Yeah. It just means that you can't really hide. If you're saying things online, it's going to come out eventually. That's why tweets are being dug up, aren't they, from the past? Like, look at who was it? It was Kevin Hart. Yeah.
Would you ever police anyone's that work for you guys?
I think I personally would never police employees what they do, as long as it's, as long as it's supporting kind of the values of the company. Because at the end of the day, my clients are on LinkedIn, so it does reflect whatever they say, and you've got to be aware of that. But at the same time, like, it is their social media.
I've only ever once. I mean, we fight some pretty fucking nuts people, but I've only ever once had to tell someone to take a comment down because we'd put something up. I think it might have been after our first year, and his comment was, "Can't believe I get to work with this gaggle of every day." So I was like, "You bet, mate." I was like, "Jesus fucking Christ!" Luckily, I caught it after 5 minutes. It'd been up for 5 minutes, but that could have been a fucking disaster.
Yeah,
that could because that. He's
like inappropriate use of gaggle. What is he doing?
It's not a gaggle at all.
That was on a company post.
Yeah,
and it was you could see as a company employee that the damage that could have done if we'd left it up for or if it had been up for a couple of hours is
and
horrendous.
So just out of interest, because we've never had that with Iron Productions or anything like that. To be honest, I'm probably the highest risk person of doing that. So it's a bit of a weird one. If I was setting a benchmark, it would be horrendous. But how would you have handled that, or how did you handle that?
I just fucking rang him and said, "What the fuck are you doing?"
So you delete? Or did you ring him and say delete the post?
Yeah.
What was the conversation you had when you come back into work the next day or whatever?
What the fuck were you thinking?
Yeah. And what was his just? What was it just? Did you just think it was funny, or you didn't realise it was bad?
Well, to be fair to me, he was the sort of lad who's lived under a rock all his life. He was our sort of weird. He was funny. He was edgy. He'd go too far sometimes, but. To be fair, the genuine conversation with him, he didn't understand the word bad.
Yeah,
he just didn't get it because he didn't even understand what it meant. He just thought it was just a thing you call your mates, and he was just used to throwing it about left, right, and centre. But when I actually explained why it was a problem, he kind of got it. Well, that's the risk.
So if I was a business owner listening to this, and that's like a lot of the views my own community are, they're like small businesses or like solopreneurs or whatever, and I've not got much of a personal brand, but I've heard this, like, what would be your sort of top 3 essential things I should be doing, or top 5? I'm not going to put a number on it, but there's 2 numbers. Like, what would be your like sort of top advice for, you have to do this, you have to do that, or it's essential that you do this right? What would you say?
I'd start with, like, what's your objective? What are you trying to do? Because as soon as you start putting content out there, and that doesn't really actually fit your purpose, you're just kind of pushing. It's just a waste of time, to be honest. I would say, like, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to build following? Do you want to attract talent? Do you want to generate business leads or get invites to podcasts and conferences? Like, all of those require a different content strategy. So I would say the first thing is like actually have an objective and do everything you do strategically with intention, with purpose, because it's going to help just make your content more kind of streamlined and precise and help you get to where you need to be. That'd be my first tip.
I also approach personal branding from a way more than just a content perspective. Like, I think personal branding is whether you wear a watch or not. It's how you send messages. It's how you greet people, whether it's a handshake, a hug. There are all of these factors that come into personal branding. And when you take those small little things and then you go, okay, well, then you're going to extrapolate that over, I don't know, 100 million views or, 100 different LinkedIn posts, that actually, all of those little things in terms of the words you use, the phrases that you're known for, the colors that, become associated with your brand, actually become really significant in creating a personal brand that is powerful, that stands out, etc.
Is that why you wear? Is that why you do the white sock thing?
Yeah, I try and live by my own principles, but some of the people that I work with, it's not actually on a content perspective. It's actually just taking that step back and going, okay, how can we incorporate more of you, more of your jokes, or more of your make you stand out, basically. And I think that, as I say, when your content is getting viewed by millions of people, those things actually start to really matter.
It's interesting because Stephen Bartlett used to wear a hat, and I used to give him loads of shit for that. What's under the hat and stuff like that.
Yeah,
as soon as he took the hat off, he's gone skyrocketed. Maybe the hat was holding him back all this time.
Yeah, it probably was.
You know what I mean? That was it.
It was weighing him down. Yeah, it was.
Do you know what I mean? Because at first it was like, he's wearing a hat because he wants something to be known for. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
maybe it was that.
Maybe. I used to call him Small Hat Man.
Did you?
Yeah, before I knew his proper name.
Yeah. We're quite immature, really, aren't we? Let's be honest. We built a personal brand by being immature and bullying more successful people than we are.
That's basically what we've done. Yeah.
Sad bastards.
Another bit of advice that I'd give for anyone starting is to be personal in what they're saying. It doesn't mean you have to talk about your dog that's just died on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean you have to be super vulnerable and try and tick these boxes, but it means if you've got an opinion on something, try to showcase it through a personal story, because that's what's going to improve. It's going to help people build trust with you and rapport. There's 1,000 posts millions about leadership, right, on LinkedIn. If you want to position yourself as a good leader, give an example. I had this job, this happened, this was a shit leader, this is what I learned from it, this is what I do now with my team. That immediately, to me, is more interesting than somebody taking a quote off some, Winston Churchill or Oprah or something, plugging it onto LinkedIn and be like, leadership is important, #leadership.
Yeah, it's definitely one way of doing it. I wouldn't say for everyone to do, because not everyone has interesting stories. But it's one of the two things you can use to make your content interesting. Number one, tone of voice. If you can develop a tone of voice that's either funny or different, makes you stand out. And if you can tell stories, it's pretty good. You don't have to do both. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do both. You can do different bits of content. You can give tips. You can do. It's just about how you do it differently. And it's not like you always say, be different, right? It's about making it stand out. But I don't think you always need to tell a story, because most of my content doesn't have a story in. It's either taking the piss out of someone, or it's giving a bit of advice. It doesn't necessarily have a story or a narrative behind it.
But your tone of voice makes it personal to you.
It's tone of voice rather than the story.
That's what you've got to. You've got to make sure it feels personal.
Thanks for watching the Views My Own podcast. If this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your comments below. And also, we've got an online community that helps you improve your marketing, get better at sales, and make your business a little less shit. Click the link in the description.